What would change in your life if you believe that judgment is a good thing, if not completely essential to your survival? How would you listen, show up differently in your life, talk to others about tough, tighter, tender topics differently? What's the judgment bubbling up in you right now as you look at me? You are always judging. You are biologically predisposed to judge, especially when you experience something different than what you've learned, or today accept as your desired norm. These forms of judgment motivate choices to stay safe, to belong, to fit in with your in crowd. My parents told me a well-intended yet hurtful lie that I fully believed, that I was one and the same as other people. Innocence suffers cruelty deeply, and mine came very early on, the first day of kindergarten. As I walked into the classroom, a boy pointed his finger at me and said, "Who let the redskin in?" Snickers followed, his and others. Of course, I had no idea what redskin meant, and I knew that it was said to hurt me, and it surely did. My story is not unique, and not because other people have birthmarks on their faces. As I've learned working with leaders around the world, all of us have the feeling of being judged for our difference. And yet, what most leaders do is they adopt an expected identity, both to achieve and to avoid feeling uncomfortable about some aspect of their self-image. In conforming to external expectations, leaders feel the illusion of separation from valuable traits that they actually miss. In the experience of being judged, they realize it's a reality that's been with them all of their lives, causing them to bury some of their innate creativity in a false identity. It also blocks them from access to their courage to be seen and to express themselves fully. I, of course, recognize this because for a very long time, I carried my own difference as a badge of courage. I built capacity to excel in most everything and held tightly to that as the evidence that I was worthy of opportunity, of respect, and love. Only this backfired. It separated me as others judged me as intimidating and ambitious. Let me give you another example. In 1892, Dmitry Izamovich discovered that the tobacco disease was not caused by bacteria or fungus, the only causes of disease known at the time. He could have thrown up his hands and said, "Well, that's it, I will quit my science." But he didn't do that. He invited change, and he laid the pathway for Martinez Bajurink to discover that what he called the cause of the disease was virus, launching the entire field of virology in 1898, something that's quite central to our lives today. Judgment is not the enemy. In fact, it doesn't even require anybody's permission. It simply asks you to step into your own courage and curiosity. It also gives you access to your resource, capability, and creativity. When my parents told me that it was useful to be one and the same in order to conform, they did it to avoid me having anything uncomfortable or disturbing in my life. And actually created quite the contrary. It was a bit of a fantasy, quite boring and safe and monochromatic, and an inner world that just didn't match up at all with the exterior world that was quite disturbing. But it helped me to realize that I needed to be willing to be disturbed, because only then would I see the world as it is and be able to invite the capacity to invite change anywhere, anytime. Can you see that we're actually talking about two things at once, being judgmental and judgment? Judgment is as natural to the human experience as breathing. It keeps us alive and thriving through discernment and critical thinking. Being judgmental is an entirely different thing. Being judgmental is laden with the stereotypes and labels and bias that separate. Being judgmental evokes bad feelings, doubt, shame, fear, either of being visible or invisible. Being judgmental also motivates us to figure out the rules, the ones that keep us safe from being judged through teasing or bullying or outright rejection. Have you ever wondered where the cliche birds of a feathers flock together came from? Yeah, I know. You've seen the pigeons and the sparrows flying in the sky. However, think about this from an interpersonal relationship point of view. Being together with people just like you is the way to stay safe and belong, because you are in a flock of people that are just like you. It's no wonder that our societal aspiration to embrace and celebrate diversity is so very hard. By conflating judgment and being judgmental, we've robbed society of the best of humans, connecting with respectful and co-creative human relationships. The big challenge here is to serve and to be caring, to express compassion, to experience empathy. These all require that we exercise judgment. As we think about what it is to be in the world from our wholeness, what I learned in working with global leaders for 27 years now is they needed to have a front windshield view, opening awareness and focus in order to have the ability to invite changes, new, more useful, effective ways of working. As they learn to replace the suffering for their difference with celebrating their uniqueness, their own and others that they could see more clearly, we began to see that there was a mindset to adopt that would allow them in every day of their lives to realize that judgment serves them as the way to invite change. Here are 3 internal practices that I would offer you. First, notice. Notice being judgmental. Pause in that moment, breathe, listen a little more deeply, and allow yourself to recognize you may be missing part of the story and not see all that is occurring. 2, name. Name being judgmental. Name what disturbs you and give a little more time and attention to appreciate in a direct communication with another, what is it that's occurring beyond your assumption, preference, and bias. 3, negotiate. Negotiate being judgmental, for you will be. You're human. Negotiate by exercising judgment that has a mindset of wonder that allows you to ask people, who are you? What matters to you? And together to discover that the whole always is greater than the sum of the parts. Notice, name, negotiate. These 3 practices internally are how to exercise self-respecting judgment that expands your view of what normal means to you. Our world needs every one of us to exercise judgment and discover the hope needed to get through dark times. Beyond passive wishful thinking, real hope invites your action and engagement. Let me leave you with this invitation. Be deliberate in your decision making and allow yourself to connect interiorly to a voice of inspiration that speaks more loudly than the voice of deference to others or self-doubt, to discern unconditionally that you are enough, that your presence in the world is worthy, and that every choice is yours to invite the change you want in your life. Thank you.